They told you it was love. They said love is sacrifice, love is compromise, love is about giving without expecting. And so you gave your time, your peace, your voice, sometimes even your dignity. You offered everything and received silence in return, or worse, control. But because it wore the costume of affection, you didn't see it for what it was: manipulation. You called it care when they tracked your every move. You called it protection when they doubted your every decision. You called it love when they withheld affection to punish you, when they praised your submission as maturity. You told yourself, this is what love looks like. But deep down, in the quiet ache behind your smile, in the weight in your chest when they speak, in the way your dreams have faded into background noise, you know something isn't right. This is not love. This is a mirror maze of control, stitched together by fear, guilt, and the hunger to belong. You've been manipulated. And the worst part, you helped build the cage. But here's the uncomfortable truth. To break free, you must first admit that what you've called relationship was never truly love. It was survival, performance, a slow erosion of your true self. This video is not about blame, it's about awakening. So if you're ready to see the truth, no matter how much it shakes you, come with me. Let's begin with chapter 1, the illusion of love. When dependence dresses as devotion, you thought it was love. The butterflies, the heartbeat in overdrive, the way your soul bent in their direction, like a sunflower chasing sunlight. But beneath the shimmer of romance, something else took root, a silent parasite: dependence. You didn't fall in love, you fell into orbit. Your thoughts, your identity, your needs began to rotate around another, and still you called it devotion. This isn't love, it's submission in disguise. It's the ego dissolving not into oneness, but into erasure. You confuse sacrifice with connection. You believe that to love is to lose yourself, to compromise endlessly, to mute your inner voice for the sake of us. But in truth, when love becomes a leash, you are not devoted, you are domesticated. Nietzsche warned us of herd morality, but few recognize how easily it seeps into intimacy. Be good, they say, be loving, and so you obey, hoping to earn affection. You betray yourself gently, so gently that it feels like kindness. Emotional blackmail and the myth of selflessness. They cry, you apologize, they withdraw. You chase, they threaten silence. You give in. This is not communication, it's control, dressed in the robes of emotional vulnerability. Emotional blackmail is rarely overt. It operates in whispers, in sighs, in the tension that fills a room when you speak your truth. It punishes honesty. It teaches you that peace only comes when you contort. The myth of selflessness becomes your doctrine. Love is about putting them first. No, love is about standing with, not beneath. Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of us we repress. In toxic relationships, your shadow becomes their plaything. Your guilt, your need for approval, your old abandonment wounds, all become levers. You start believing that your worth is directly proportional to your ability to endure discomfort in silence. But love that asks for your silence is not love. It is theft. Why control feels like care. You shouldn't wear that. Don't talk to him. I'm only saying this because I care. Control rarely enters through the front door. It slips in with a gentle voice, a concerned gaze, a hand on your shoulder. It sounds like care. It feels like protection. But slowly, your choices narrow. Your voice softens. You begin to filter your truth through their comfort. You mistake possessiveness for passion. You confuse jealousy with depth. Because somewhere deep inside, you were taught that love must hurt, that intensity is proof of sincerity, and so their control becomes a twisted form of reassurance. They must love me. Look how much they want to protect me. But protection becomes a prison when it denies your agency. What they call care is often just a euphemism for fear. Fear of losing control, fear of your autonomy, fear of their own inadequacy. And so they mold you slowly into a version of yourself that is safer for them. You shrink and they call it closeness, the silent extinction of the self. You stop dancing, you stop speaking up, you laugh a little less loudly, you start editing yourself, not because they told you to, but because you learned how to anticipate their discomfort. That is how manipulation works best, when it no longer needs to be spoken. Bit by bit, the person you were begins to vanish. Not all at once, but like a candle flickering against the wind, quietly, beautifully, tragically. You justify it. I'm just compromising. But no, you are disappearing. Foucault said power is not always violent. Often it is invisible, a soft architecture of control that reshapes your soul. You live in a performance now, every smile, every word calibrated. You don't even know who you are without them anymore. That's not love, that's a slow death. But here's the awakening. What you've called love was never love. It was a mirror of your fears, your wounds, your forgotten worth. And if you are brave enough to look beyond the illusion, if you dare to question the scripts you've inherited, you may begin to feel something terrifying and true. Not the comfort of being owned, but the raw, trembling power of being free. Gaslighting as a weapon of reality distortion. It begins subtly. You recall a moment, something they said, something they did, and when you bring it up, their eyes narrow, their voice softens, almost pitying. That's not what happened. You feel the ground beneath your memory begin to shift. Gaslighting is the art of eroding your reality until you question your own sanity. It doesn't require rage. It doesn't need shouting. It only requires repetition, a steady, calculated denial of your experience. The more you protest, the more irrational you appear. And slowly, you begin to trust them more than your own mind. This is not a misunderstanding. This is a design. The abuser becomes the architect of your perception. Your inner compass is hijacked. You begin to crave their version of events because at least it's stable, even if it's false. You're no longer navigating life with your truth, but with their narrative. And that's how they win. Not by overpowering you, but by convincing you to abandon yourself. The economy of guilt and obligation. There's a currency in toxic relationships. Not love, not care, but guilt. Every kind gesture is a loan. Every act of affection carries a hidden interest. They remind you of what they've done for you, as if love were a debt you must repay. After everything I've done, this is how you treat me. You begin to live in an economy of obligation. You stay, not because you want to, but because you owe them something. You accept the discomfort, not because it's right, but because walking away would make you ungrateful. But guilt is not a moral compass. It is a leash. Real love doesn't keep score. It doesn't weigh your worth against your obedience. But manipulation thrives on your sense of duty. They weaponize your empathy, your history, your shared memories. Every laugh becomes a hook. Every favor, a tether. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone your suffering. Power games disguised as compromise. They never say it outright, but there's always an unspoken rule: bend or break. You're told that healthy relationships require compromise, and so you lower your voice, you delay your dreams, you become less difficult. But true compromise is mutual. In the architecture of manipulation, it's a one-way street. They call it balance. But you are always the one adjusting. The balance they speak of is equilibrium through dominance. You learn to pick your battles, to smile when you're tired, to apologize first, even when you're right, because you've learned that peace only arrives when you abandon yourself. And this is the cruel irony. The more flexible you become, the more rigid they get. The more you yield, the more entitled they feel. Compromise without boundaries is just quiet surrender. How silence becomes submission. There's a moment, quiet, invisible, when you stop fighting, not because things got better, but because you got tired, exhausted. You learn that speaking your truth leads to conflict, that resistance only brings punishment, and so you fall into a new role: the peacemaker, the avoider, the silent. But silence, too, is a choice. And in relationships built on control, your silence becomes a contract. Every time you bite your tongue, you reinforce the system. Every time you look the other way, you co-sign the manipulation. Soon you begin to confuse silence with strength. You call it maturity. You say, it's not worth the fight. But what you really mean is, I don't believe my truth matters anymore. Foucault taught us that power is not merely imposed. It is internalized. You no longer need their voice to control you. Your own fear does the job. Their presence lives inside you now, like a whisper in your mind. And so you comply, not because you're weak, but because you've been taught that love must be earned through disappearance. The architecture of manipulation isn't built with chains. It's built with whispers, with half-truths, with the quiet corrosion of your voice. But if you can name the structure, you can begin to tear it down. The blueprint is in front of you now. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are not difficult. You are awakening. Projection as a tool of domination. They accuse you of things you've never done. They see motives you don't possess. They speak of your flaws with uncanny precision, flaws you never knew you had. But look deeper. What they describe is not you, it's them in disguise. Projection is the narcissist's favorite weapon. Rather than face their inner chaos, they externalize it. You become the screen upon which they project their own shame, insecurity, and rage. They call you selfish because they cannot give. They call you unstable because they cannot bear their own volatility. You begin to question yourself. You wonder if maybe they're right, maybe you are too much, maybe you are broken. But here's the truth, you are not broken. You are the mirror they cannot bear to face. By breaking you, they avoid breaking open. The need to be needed and how it enslaves you were chosen not because you were weak, but because you were strong, empathetic, attentive, ready to love completely. The narcissist doesn't want a partner, they want a reflection. They seek those who will orbit their needs, who will affirm their illusions, who will bleed themselves dry just to see them smile. And they offer you a role, the savior, the fixer, the emotional sponge. They make you feel essential, and it feels like love, but it's not. It's dependency masquerading as intimacy. You fall into the trap. If they need you, they won't leave you. If you heal them, they'll finally love you. But their need is bottomless, and your effort only feeds the imbalance. You become addicted to their brokenness, because healing them gives your pain purpose. But you were not born to complete another. You were not made to be consumed. Love bombing and the cycle of idealization. It started like a dream, the intensity, the admiration, the constant attention. You were their muse, their miracle, their soulmate. They mirrored your desires, your fears, your wounds, made you feel seen in ways no one else had. But it wasn't real. It was love bombing, a strategy to disarm you with devotion. Because once they had you, the mask began to slip. The pedestal crumbled. The same person who once adored you now criticizes, mocks, withdraws. You try to return to that magical beginning, unaware that it was only bait. This is the cycle. Idealize, devalue, discard, and repeat. You live in emotional whiplash, always reaching, always hoping, because if they once loved you so deeply, it must mean something. You believe that if you just try harder, you can bring back that original high. But love that requires chasing your own worth is not love. It's entrapment. You're not chasing affection. You're chasing a ghost, escaping the seduction of suffering. Why do you stay? Because the pain is familiar, because the chaos feels like passion, because the absence of love has become your definition of it. This is the seduction of suffering. Somewhere, perhaps long ago, you learned that love means proving yourself, that being loved means being tested. And so, when the narcissist pushes you away, you take it as a challenge. I'll show them I'm worthy. I'll make them stay. But suffering is not proof of depth. It is proof of distortion. Real love does not require torment to feel real. It is not a storm you must survive. It is not a puzzle you must solve. It is a sanctuary, not a battlefield. The narcissist feeds on your endurance. They admire your resilience only because it allows them to keep breaking you. But you were not born to be anyone's mirror. You were born to see through the illusion, to see the mask fall, to see yourself, not as someone to be fixed, but as someone to be free. You've walked the halls of their mirror palace. You've seen your reflection twisted, your light dimmed, your love weaponized. But now the mirror shatters. You do not belong to their story. You are not a chapter in their script. You are your own beginning, the art of radical honesty. You've spent years performing, smiling through pain, nodding through discomfort, bending your truth to avoid rejection. You were taught to keep the peace, even at the cost of your integrity. But peace without truth is just a beautifully decorated lie. Now, you are called to a new practice. Radical honesty, not the kind of honesty that seeks approval, not the kind that gently tiptoes around another's ego. This is the kind of honesty that burns, that clears the dead branches so something alive can grow. It's saying no when everything in you has been trained to say yes. It's daring to speak when silence has been your shield. Honesty is a sacred violence. It kills the performance so the soul can breathe. It will cost you. People will call you difficult. Some will leave, but what you lose in validation, you gain in liberation. And in that fire, something stronger than approval begins to grow. Self-respect, relearning solitude without shame. You fear being alone, not because solitude is painful, but because it reveals everything distraction helps you avoid. Alone, you hear your doubts. You face your emptiness. You meet the parts of yourself you've been outsourcing to others. Worth, joy, stability. But solitude is not abandonment. It is reunion. There is a difference between loneliness and being alone. Loneliness is craving someone else to fill your void. Solitude is sitting beside that void until you discover it was never empty, only waiting. Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." You must relearn how to be with yourself, not as a punishment, but as a practice. The more time you spend in your own company, the less you'll tolerate anyone who makes you feel lonelier in relationship than you ever did alone. Boundaries as sacred rebellion. You were taught that love is selflessness, that boundaries are selfish, that saying no is unkind. That was a lie, a beautiful, deadly lie. Boundaries are not walls. They are thresholds. They do not push people away. They protect what is sacred within. Every time you say no with clarity and conviction, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every limit you set is a declaration. I am not available for my own erosion. In a world that profits from your submission, setting boundaries is a form of rebellion. And yes, it will be uncomfortable, especially if you've been conditioned to please. But boundaries are not cruelty, they are clarity. They say, I will not betray myself to be loved. You don't need to scream. You don't need to explain. You only need to decide that your peace matters more than their approval. Choosing respect over romanticism. You've been trained to prioritize intensity, the sparks, the passion, the butterflies. You've been taught to chase drama and call it destiny. But the truth is, love without respect is just emotional theater. Respect is quiet. It doesn't flood your nervous system. It doesn't sweep you off your feet, but it sees you. It listens. It honors your truth, even when it's inconvenient. It doesn't punish your voice. It doesn't disappear when you need it most. Choosing respect means walking away from anything or anyone that asks you to compromise your dignity in the name of love. It means understanding that romance without integrity is just manipulation in a prettier outfit. The stories you've inherited, the ones where suffering proves love, where drama means depth, must be burned, not in bitterness, but in clarity. Let them burn. Let the illusions turn to ash, because on the other side of that fire is you. The unfiltered, unedited, unapologetic you, the one who no longer begs for crumbs, the one who has nothing left to prove, only something to protect, their peace. Love as freedom, not fusion. They taught you that love is becoming one, a merging of souls, a dissolving of boundaries. But too often what's called oneness is really disappearance. Fusion becomes confusion. You lose track of where you end, and they begin. But true love does not consume, it expands. It does not seek to own, only to witness. Real love is not the erasure of difference, it is the celebration of it. It is not about completing each other, it is about walking beside one another, whole. When love becomes freedom, not fusion, something sacred happens. You stop clinging and you start choosing, each day from a place of sovereignty, not survival. That's how you know it's real, not because it makes you forget yourself, but because it reminds you who you are. Becoming whole without another, you've been told that healing happens in the arms of another, that the right partner will fix what's broken, that love will fill the cracks. But healing doesn't arrive from outside, it emerges from within. You must become your own home. This is the turning point, when you stop waiting for someone to love you the way you've never loved yourself, when you stop looking for someone to rescue you from your own emptiness, when you realize, painfully, beautifully, that you were never incomplete. The ache you feel is not a call for romance, it's a call for reconnection with yourself. Become the presence you always longed for, the protector, the truth teller, the safe space. When you do, you stop attracting chaos and start radiating clarity. Why walking away can be the deepest form of love they won't understand. They'll say you gave up. They'll call you heartless. But sometimes the greatest act of love is leaving, not to punish, not to escape, but to protect what's left of your soul. Walking away isn't always about giving up on them. It's about choosing yourself, perhaps for the first time. It's the refusal to continue performing, the final stand of a heart that's done bleeding for validation. When you walk away, you tell the world, I will no longer participate in my own diminishment. And maybe, just maybe, your courage to leave becomes the spark that helps them see their own shadows. But even if it doesn't matter. This was never about them. This was always about you, reclaiming the life, the voice, the dignity that was slowly stolen in the name of love. The quiet revolution of being no one's puppet. You don't need revenge. You don't need applause. You don't need them to finally see your worth. Your revolution is internal. It is in the way you say no without guilt, in the way you rest without permission, in the way you stand alone and feel whole. To be no one's puppet is to live without strings, to speak without editing, to love without losing yourself, to walk without dragging someone else's shame behind you. You do not need to scream your freedom. It speaks through your silence. It radiates from your stillness. And now, in the ashes of all you once believed love had to be, you begin. If this spoke to something in you, something buried, something awakening, don't turn away. This is your invitation, not to hate, not to blame, but to see your patterns, to see your conditioning, to see the truth beneath the scripts you were handed. And if you're ready to go deeper, to rewrite the story, to rebuild your identity, to unlearn everything love is not, this journey is just beginning. There are more truths waiting, more illusions to break, more power to reclaim. So follow the call, watch the next chapter, keep walking, because your freedom is not a destination, it is a practice, and you are not a victim. You are the flame.